Okay, let's unpack this. You sent us some really interesting source material looking at mistletoe extract.
Yeah, specifically its use in advanced cancer. It's got quite a history, especially over in Europe.
Right. But the focus here for our deep dive is on this specific U.S. clinical trial you highlighted. It used intravenous mistletoe extract.
That's the one. Helixor M, I believe, was the product name in the study.
And the mission is really to understand what this trial, based on your source, was trying to achieve and, well, what it found.
Okay, so a bit of context first.
Hmm.
Your source does point out mistletoe extract isn't new decades of use in Europe, often as a complementary approach.
Complementary, okay. And there's some lab science suggesting it might, what, kill cancer cells or boost the immune system?
Yeah, preclinical stuff suggests that. But, and this is key, it's not FDA approved here in the U.S. for treating cancer.
Right. You might find it in some, like, integrative oncology centers, but it's not standard care.
Exactly, which makes this trial pretty notable. The source suggests it was the first Phase I trial of intravenous Helixor M in the U.S.
A Phase I trial, so the main goals are always about safety first, right? And figuring out the dose.
Precisely. Finding the safe dose for any future studies, and just generally evaluating the safety profile. That's paramount in Phase I.
And who were the people in the study? What kind of patients?
There were 21 patients, and this is really important context from the source. These were people with advanced cancers
Advanced?
and treatment resistant.
Yeah.
Meaning, they'd already been through multiple rounds of standard therapy that hadn't worked or stopped working.
Wow. So a really tough situation for these patients, kind of running out of options.
Definitely a challenging group.
And how is the mistletoe given? You said intravenous.
Yeah, directly into the vein 3 times a week.
Okay.
And they used what's called dose escalation. Started low, then carefully increased the dose in different patient groups to find the upper limit of what was safe.
Right. Finding that ceiling. So what was the maximum safe dose they determined?
The source stated they landed on 600 milligrams as the maximum tolerated dose, or MTD.
Okay. 600 milligrams. And side effects, what did they see?
The most common things reported were fatigue, some nausea, and chills, but the researchers described these as manageable.
Manageable is good, especially considering how ill these patients likely were already. Did they see any hints it was actually affecting the cancer?
Well, remember the main goal was safety. They did observe some interesting things. For instance, stable disease in 5 patients.
Stable disease meaning the cancer stopped growing for a while.
Exactly. For about 15 weeks on average in those 5 patients. In a group where cancer was actively progressing before, it's something researchers noticed.
And I think the source also mentioned some tumors actually shrank.
It did. In 3 patients, the tumors got smaller. Now, it wasn't enough shrinkage to meet the official definition of a partial response in this trial's rules.
Ah, okay, so some reduction, but not crossing that specific threshold.
Right, but the tumors stayed stable at that smaller size for 2 to 5 months. Again, in this very advanced setting, even those signals are considered noteworthy observations.
Beyond just the tumor measurements, what about how the patients felt? Quality of life is so critical.
Yeah, they looked at that too, using a questionnaire. And the patients actually reported an overall improvement in their quality of life during the study.
Improved quality of life alongside manageable side effects and those hints of disease control. That seems significant, doesn't it? Especially for this group.
It does. It really lines up with the conclusion highlighted in the source material.
Which was?
That this trial showed, quote, manageable toxicities with disease control and improved quality of life, specifically in these patients who'd already had so much prior treatment.
Okay. So where does this lead? What are the next steps mentioned?
The logical next step is moving to Phase II trials.
Yeah.
The source suggested maybe exploring combinations, like mistletoe with chemotherapy.
Makes sense. Test it in more people, maybe see if it boosts other treatments.
Right. And also, more lab work is needed to really understand how it might be working. They mentioned looking deeper into things like cytokines, the immune system signaling molecules.
Got it. So, pulling it together. This Phase I trial nailed down a safe dose for 5e Helixor M, showed it was generally tolerable, and importantly, provided some early, maybe encouraging signs.
Yeah, preliminary signs of disease control and better quality of life in a very tough-to-treat patient population.
It definitely seems to lay the groundwork for more research, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A necessary first step.
Yeah.
If this is going to be explored further in a rigorous way.
Which brings us to a final thought for you listening in. When you're dealing with advanced cancers where options are limited and just feeling better day to day matters so much, What's the real significance of finding a treatment with manageable side effects that shows even preliminary hints of controlling the disease and, maybe most importantly, improves reported quality of life? What potential might that hold, especially if combined with other therapies down the line, like the researchers are suggesting? Something to think about.